Hello everybody, welcome to our webinar today, Top Tips for Protecting Your Valuable Media Assets from Cybercrime. My name is Mark Habberfield, I'm Global Sales Engineer for Object Matrix, and on the line we have Francisco also. Today we are going to be obviously talking about IT security, and that is a massive topic, really a lot of things going on there. You could be talking about firewalls, routers, networks, HCL, virus software, they all play a part, but today, a storage company, we're going to be talking about the storage side of things and what happens when we experience storage in the media world. So why are we able to do that? Well, myself, I've been in IT for 20 years now, done a lot with network security, Cisco certified network administration, ITIL, my degree of technologies for digital media, and obviously well versed in Windows, Mac, and Linux. Francisco, our CTO, he's been in IT for probably a little over 30 years now. He's software designer, software architect, and a cloud computing expert. But Object Matrix as a whole, we're a company been providing object storage for well over 18 years. We've got a team of over 25 who are trusted by over 200 customers worldwide. And that makes up hundreds of years worth of experience in the IT world. Our systems, they've been proven to survive certain problems within the industry, and we've helped our customers sort out when they've had problems. So, you know, we know what to look for, we've recognized problems, and we've helped sort them out with minimum effort for people. And it's that protection of the assets, it's second to none. And that's why I think we're quite qualified to help you with that. But why are we talking about security? Well, security's become a very big topic, especially in this year. The pandemic has changed the way we all work, but large-scale data breaches are up, massive 273%. Most of it ransomware, where people are just encrypting files and stopping access, and destructive attacks, wiping things out on the way through. With the remote working, this data breach is costing staggering amounts of money, 137,000 per company when it happens to them. And yet globally, seeing breaches due to cloud misconfigurations up massively and causing many dollars worth of trouble for people. WHO reckon it's a 5-fold increase in cyber attacks, and I know probably up until 2019, I probably only heard of a few problems here and there, but these days it's every week in the news almost that we're finding out friends or family have been involved in something in some way within the industry. So today we're going to talk about our experiences here at Object Matrix and answer some questions on the topic. I'll ask Francisco some, he'll ask me some, and then we'll have a look at Matrix Store and how we do it ourselves. So Francisco, with the acceleration of cloud adoption and rapid migration of data, what are the most common mistakes you've seen people making with their storage so far?
Well, first, there is the acceleration of cloud adoption and rapid migration, initially driven by the pandemic and now driven by business recovery. This led to a lack of planning and then the selection of too much technology to solve business problems without accounting for how everything would be operationalized. People drove to the bottom of cheap clouds. They were relaxing security because they were in a rush to get people working remotely. The public cloud was also prioritizing onboarding customers rather than securing them. Users were using weak usernames and passwords. And the gap between the internet and the DMZ zones on the companies was reduced because of remote working. So now there is a real breach crossing all those gaps. We all know that the weakest link is quite often the user. So what can we do to mitigate this? What do you think, Mark?
Well, yeah, the user is often the weakest link. This came out of a workflow innovation group webinar and scenario we did back in 2018, where we got a load of our top techs together from various customers and persons within the industry. And they said, yeah, it's all about training. The end user is a weak link, quite often passing emails with plain text passwords or storing the passwords on a note on the desktop. We've all seen it, we all disapprove of it, but they do it, and we have to train them not to. But from the data side of things, we need to look at actually the weight of the data. The data is quite heavily important, very heavy weight to it. We need to make sure it's got the right data policies on it. And we can do that at a storage layer if we've got the right systems in place. Making sure it's immutable, making sure we lock the assets, tracking the assets as well, and finding the main metadata and data itself is locked to be only changed by the people who can change it. So how many copies, Francisco, and where and when?
Well, there is no an absolute answer to this, how many copies. What you really need is a strategy around disaster recovery and business continuity. Have several aspects that you have to take into account, like immutability of the backups, etc. A very popular strategy around backups is the 3-2-1, where you have at least 3 copies of your data stored. 2 of them stored on different media types or devices, and 1 of them kept off-site. MatrixStore can help you to implement this strategy or any other that you feel more suitable for your business. So you think, Mark, complexity is a help or a hindrance when it comes to asset storage security?
Well, yeah, I've seen it being quite a hindrance recently. Complexity is a massive factor when you've got multiple silos of storage, multiple ACLs to manage. Even if we do use Active Directory, we've got to tie the Active Directory into all of the various systems, multiple protocols, multiple endpoints, and multiple upgrades to maintain. The more complex the system is, the worse it is. And with the rapid growth of these new cloud and cloud-connected technologies, we're seeing the complexity is getting more and more out there, and you've almost got to have a degree in cloud computing just to be able to understand all of the things that are happening out there. Certainly enterprise is hitting a complexity wall, and experts in the industry will help you out where they can. But it's a complex world out there, fast-moving technology that's clearly causing quite a lot of problems for the storage industry. We'd like to think we can all help with that out there. So we're hearing the word ransomware a lot, Francisco. How do a lot of these ransomware attacks work, in your opinion?
Well, there are many ways how they work. Media is particularly at risk against ransomware because of the characteristics of the data. There are different tactics. One of the main ones is to encrypt the data. Of course, it is unlikely that this tactic is gonna encrypt the whole data. Imagine you had a 1 petabyte of media library, and encrypting byte by byte it's a lot of effort and time consuming. And ransomware, what they want is they want the biggest hit as quickly as possible. So they look for vulnerabilities of the data, and some of the tactics they use is to encrypt the file system metadata indexer. The index is normally much smaller than the data itself, so the encryption can be devastating. Good luck trying to work out what blocks belong to what files. Another strategy is to encrypt parts of the file. All the hacker really needs is to scramble a few blocks in each media file. If they understand the media, they pretty much know what that they can cause ad hoc just by encrypting the start of every media file. There is no need to encrypt the whole thing. Another tactic is to encrypt file system names. It can even be enough to just encrypt those names and folder names, and maybe move some files around. Or they can also encrypt directly different blocks on disks regardless of the file system. So there are different ways they can attack you.
Okay.
What kind of data policies should I be looking to enforce on my most valuable assets?
Well, I think the immutability is the word that comes up quite a lot recently. The ability to lock that data, and not just the data itself, the metadata as well. Like you said, if someone can scramble the metadata and scramble the file name, they've scrambled the file. It's going to take a lot of work to get those things back in there. But locking the data just as much, as well as replication, making sure the replication is happening at the right time, and that we're not replicating the locks, the changes that have happened as well. So a good policy with your replicated data is also good. I think analytics are starting to come into this quite a lot as well now. We're looking for patterns, you know, day to day, roughly what data goes in and out of the storage. We're starting to see a massive spike in data reads or metadata changes. We need to start flagging those things up within our analytics. Any unusual data like that should, behavior like that should be flagged up and alerted to us. And if we've got the right analytic tools in place, we can probably do that quite nicely. So Matrix Store was built from the inside out with security in mind. Tell us a bit about that process, Francisco.
Well, yes, indeed. All our servers or VMs that we deploy or help to deploy, they come with a Matrix OS, which is really our own Linux distribution. It includes a built-in firewall. It supports data immutability. It provides all the services, just what Matrix Store services need. So everything else at the level of the OS is stripped out, and it just runs like the minimum necessary. The Matrix Store soft services provide all the features like data encryption, strong user authentication, data transmission encryption. Auditing is built in. You can audit all operations that happen on the system, administration operations or data access related. And the file system access, it's an option. You can have a file system access, it's a virtual file system, but the internal file systems of our servers are never exposed. That reduces a lot the dangers of those servers being hacked. How secure do you think Matrix Store Cloud is, Mark?
Well, you know, we've been deploying Matrix Store Cloud for 3 years now. We've had multiple customers and more customers coming on board this year, but Matrix Store Cloud, there's not really any file system access. It's all across the internet. It's all through the Matrix Store API, and security is first. You know, all traffic is encrypted, all SSL certified, because we need that internet traffic to be secure. The S3 endpoint and the Vision endpoint that we have are the strongest we can possibly make them, in my opinion. Next, we've basically put all the storage behind multiple firewalls. It's not just one. We've got the firewalls into the data centers. We've got the firewalls into the Matrix Store itself, and we've got firewalls in between any third-party applications as well. So, you know, you could be coming through a Matrix Store through a third-party app and have to traverse 3 firewalls essentially. You know, it causes us a few extra workloads, but I think it's worth it. You know, we've had problems with some of the file acceleration tools where we've had to open up UDP ports to make them work correctly. But I think that's worth it in the long run to make sure everything is super secure. The other stuff as well, training. Obviously, we train all of our customers as best as possible and make sure there's a secure delivery of all their passwords. No plain text passwords, no single point of recording all those passwords. None of that's going to happen with us. It's a bespoke cloud storage system with exceptional training and a personalized service. And not forgetting pen testing as well. It gets pen tested fairly regularly so that we are ensuring it is to the highest quality that we can. I don't think I missed anything there, did I, Francisco?
I don't think so.
Oh, we're going to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Matrix Store. I can see everyone on the call, resellers, customers, and a few people that we know from around the industry. So let's tell them about us and what Matrix Store is in more detail. First thing, the word immutability. Used it quite a bit, but let's be sure the state of not changing or being unable to be changed as well. Matrix Store, comes in 3 standard process deployments now. There's an on-prem. You've been deploying that for a long time now. It's in 200 customers around the world in various ways, and it's a fast, intelligent object on-prem storage that allows you the gateways to also work remotely. Lots of tight integrations with media workflows gives you the benefit of working with an advanced storage. Matrix Store Cloud is exactly that. It's in the cloud. It's a Matrix Store in data centers that we then give access to our customers. You can decide how much you need and when you need it, and we'll handle the rest, all the security and all of the parts behind it. And then we've got Matrix Store Hybrid, the ability to have a mix of both, a bit of on-prem and a bit of Matrix Store Cloud, and the option to also tie in to other cloud storage platforms as well, to give the best for your company with your 3-2-1 policies or whatever your storage policies might be. So from security point of view, as we said before, we've obviously got credentials. ACLs are quite important to us, as well as the Active Directory LDAP integration. You can choose to use Matrix Store without a file system. You have those file system gateways, but you don't have to. You can just go through our apps, and that makes it very, very secure. And of course, there's no unused services, as Francisco said. The boxes are locked down with essentially our own distro on them. Full audits throughout the system, no single point of failure, and built-in firewalls. So even though you've got firewalls within your companies or within your systems, there's an extra firewall within the Matrix Store. Makes it nice and strong when it comes to people just hunting around networks looking for the lowest hanging fruit. We've got trash cans, 2-phase deletion basically. So that when people are deleting, you've still got the ability to hold it back. We expect that on our personal computers, but it's amazing how many other storage systems don't have that built in anymore. When you delete on some storages, that's it, it's gone good once and for all. We've also got full compliance in there, the ability to lock the data for a set amount of time or forever, the immutability button, as well as not being able to change the metadata either. Locking that metadata ensures everything is really tied down. We mentioned encrypted traffic. If you're using internal applications, you can opt to have encrypted traffic, but if you're using the internet ones, we will always encrypt that traffic using non-standard ports. And what I'll show you shortly, we've got the two-factor authentication in our browser application as well. So yeah, options to encrypt the data at rest, quite an important one. I'm not quite sure how you'd be able to take 60 disks and rebuild them somewhere else, but we will encrypt at rest if you really wanted to. And certainly that data transmission on public networks is encrypted. We're independently security audited, and like I said, bespoke Linux operating system, our own distro now that really looks after your data. So I'll let Francisco tell us a little bit about the virus and ransomware attacks that we've and how we handle them.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Well, making content available in a number of formats and locations is a significant opportunity and challenge for the industry. For whilst viewers demand that they are able to access video when they want and where they want, creates the opportunity for the broadcaster to deliver more content to the viewer. Creating and delivering that content to a content delivery network requires intelligent movement of data, segmented content into clips, appropriate metadata handling, and fast file-based delivery. Matrix Store provides a central place to store, augment, search, and retrieve metadata. It provides a fast access online and scalable store of data with high uptimes. It works seamlessly with the leading CMSs, CDNs, or communications to the cluster go via secure protocols. A virus would need to have intimate knowledge of the protocol, and even then would need to have the right security credentials to access the data. Furthermore, all the data can be stored as immutable for a determined amount of time, thus stopping data from being accidentally or deliberately deleted. You can, as I mentioned before, the system can audit all operations at the data level, but also on the management level. The immutability allows you to lock down media and allow access to it only through the API. But if you choose to have that data immutable, not even the API can change it. So you're really, really protected. You can implement business continuity via replication and have that, so that data can be off in another location, even with extra protection. And SMB, which is a target of many attacks, is an option. But if you choose to use it, it allows you to mount. It is mounted. It is implemented through a gateway, so it is not mounting. You are not mounting the system, an internal file system. So the external access avoids some of the security holes, because if that service is hacked, the data is not on the server that is being hacked. So you are protected there as well.
Oh, that's good to hear. So Matrix Store. Matrix Store is a cluster, and that cluster can be broken into spaces. Spaces being the logical boundaries that isolate different parts of the business or completely different businesses. Spaces can't interact with each other, and that's what allows us to be truly multi-tenancy, the ability to have two customers using the same cluster and not know about the other customer on that cluster. Also links together third-party applications and LDAP servers, etc. So spaces are particularly useful for breaking things up. We then break those spaces up into vaults. Vaults are buckets and workspaces. Now we call them vaults because we like to think of them a bit like an actual vault. If you want to take the analogy of a bank is your network. So you've got to let people into your network occasionally, customers. They want to come into your bank, they need to touch and get to certain bits of their finances, their money. But you don't keep the money all out front on a desk. Some storage systems do keep all the data out front on a desk. You're in the network, you see everything, you can get to everything. Not ideal. A lot of banks will put that money in the safest place, in the vault out the back. Only the workers can get to it, and only the workers can get to it when they need to get to it. You could almost say things like the bank machine as well is just a port into it, or the banking app is a remote user just connecting into the bits they need. But that's where we separate out the system and apply the most important policies to it. So we decide which bits of the data people can get to, what the process is on that data, what the workflow is going to be on that data, and what the actual DCG, digital content governance, is on them. Are we going to make it an immutable vault? Is it transient data? Do I need 2 copies or 1? Does this copy need to be somewhere else? These are all things we do at a vault level to make sure the data is safe. For those of you who've got a Matrix Store or have had a demo in the past, you've probably seen the screen. This is where we set up a new vault. We've got a few key features in here which people probably don't realize are that important. Metadata updatable sounds like a simple thing, but it's actually quite a useful one in object storage, because the file name is actually a piece of metadata. If you stop metadata updatable, nobody can change the file name in your system. You've broken it down so that there's one lock in place. You can use our API to move assets into and out of that vault, but while it's in that vault, nobody can change the thing it's attached to. The second one, data updatable. We all know what version it is. You've got to open a file, save as a new one. It might sound like a bit of a long-winded process, but when you've got data updatable set to 0, you again locking the assets. You're locking them forever, basically. Now you might want to switch those 2 things on, because this is a vault where the data needs to do things, and that's where compliance comes in. Because for projects, for banks, for things that need to be kept for a certain amount of time, compliance is very, very useful. It allows a compliance threshold to be set. The data that goes into the vault is going to be used for a certain amount of time. It's going to stay there, immutable, not changing, no metadata changes, no data changes for the amount of time we set. On my screen there, I've set it for 365 days, but that could just be a 90-day project or a 60-day project. You can decide and you can set it up. You could extend that, decide actually the project's running a bit longer, I'm going to extend that out. And if you set it to the last setting, extendable and reducible, you can also reduce it as well. But you can reduce it and then have to wait 24 hours for that compliance to expire and then start deleting. Now that's not an accident anymore, that's happened. And again, all of those things are audited as well. Lastly, just that trash can on storage. That came from a customer of ours. They asked us, can we have a trash can built into the storage? It was fairly simple to implement, so we did that. You could set your trash can up to auto clean for you, 7 days, 14, however many you like. Or you can treat it like the trash can on your laptop. When was the last time we all purged our own trash cans? I don't know when I did mine last, but it's a useful backup process to have those available to you. From a permission side of things, we've got two levels. We can kind of give people permissions and roles. Are you an admin? Are you a read-write access? Are you read-only? We can actually take it into the individual permissions as well. Are you only allowed to do specific things within the Matrix store? We can take it one step further as well with capabilities, where certain applications have certain capabilities and certain users can only do certain things within those applications. Again, that gives another level of granularity to be able to do that. And of course, with full Active Directory integration, you can apply these settings at a group level as well. So the administrators get one set of access, the media managers get another, the editors get another, and the general user or external user gets tied down for nothing at all. So we've got plenty of options to make that data acceptable format. Lastly, and one thing that's very useful is the new two-factor authentication. It's built into Vision, and you'll probably see it coming up pretty regularly. So let's go and have a look at that, shall we? I've got myself set up here, Vision out on the internet, on the wilds. You're all welcome to go to it. A few of you may even have logins to this because you've been using it for sharing data, just as our demo setup. And when I sign in now, it's going to throw me up the passcode. But open up my phone, standard thing, open up my app and tap in my auth code. There we go. And finally into my Matrix store and my data. Now, you know what Vision looks like. Vision's got the vaults on the left-hand side. Those vaults got different policies, metadata on the right-hand side. But today I'm going to go into my demo archive. That's the problem. All my data's missing. What's happened there? Well, not here for my acting skills, as you've probably noticed. So what I've got is somebody's put it all in the trash. I can see someone's deleted all my data, but my trash can save me. That's a good thing. Let's go find out who did that though. Let's trace them down through the audits. I can log into my admin tool. I've got a direct pipe to it, so I can easily get in there, get to my audits, select my vault, it's called Demo Archive. I can see everything that's happened. Who's been reading? Oh, there's me reading. A few changes. Oh, look here. Simon Harper's been deleting my data. Well, Simon is a good colleague of ours, and I'm sure he's not done it on purpose. So I'm going to just have a chat with him later and find out what happened. But before I do that, he's on holiday, so I'm going to actually just prevent his user from doing that again until I can train him up properly. It is a very simple process with a Matrix store. We go find the user, we go over to their permissions, we click on them, and we just choose to change them from, instead of being a read, write, delete, and a vault admin, I'm going to make him just a read only now. He can see the data, he can keep working, but he can no longer try and scupper my demos by deleting stuff. As you can see on the left, we've got the Active Directory integration, but more importantly, we've got the vault side of things. And while I'm here, let's show you those settings within it. There we are, create a vault, nice simple stuff. I can give it a name today, and I can set capacity. I can set up the audits, switch them on, see who's reading and writing. I can switch off my update metadata, make my data not updatable, and I can lead enemy to a vault. Simple as pressing a few buttons and pressing save. Equally, I could decide to leave those on and use the compliance instead. Make it extendable and reducible for set periods of time. I can enable that trash can and make that forever, or decide to keep my trash for a set period of time. And then lastly, I've got this replication as well, the ability to replicate a vault to somebody else. So I always keep 2 copies in my Matrix store. I could decide to keep a single copy because I'm going to replicate it somewhere else. Equally, I can always use a hybrid vault as well. The ability to push it off to another type of storage, keep 2 copies in the Matrix store until I've got confirmation that other storage has successfully got my data. So all super useful features for protecting your data in the Matrix store, and all for going through that important important matrix store protection and API side of things. Lastly, something that came out a couple of years ago is our Sense analytics tool. Now, Sense Analytics does exactly that. We're analyzing the data that's going in and out of your matrix store at all times. I could look at individual vault statistics, cluster statistics. I can look at the matrix store hardware and the problems with that, as well as system processes. But here's one that just shows me what's been happening in my matrix store in the last 7 days. What's interesting in here is that I had something reading a lot of data on the 15th of the 7th. 15th of July, between midnight and about lunchtime, something read all my data, on a good chunk of my data on the matrix store. That's a bit unusual, but it was also writing data at the same time. So I actually know what this is. I know what this is. This is we kicked off a big proxy gen job, which basically read all of our high-res assets and created low-res proxies to go with it. So we can see these unusual spikes and peaks in the workflow as well. That are really useful for finding things out. And, you know, pushing forward, we can also generate alerts on those as well. If we see unusual spikes or unusual thresholds, things happening, we can generate an alert and you can say, hang on a minute, what's reading 50,000 objects in the matrix store all of a sudden, and I'm not expecting a big job coming in. So yeah, all these features available to our standard matrix store customers. That's the end of the demo. I mean, if you want more information, there's plenty of stuff in our matrix store white paper that was written by our CEO, John Morgan, and gives us a lot of information about the matrix store and its security levels. We've got lots of solution briefs where we've deployed in many customers with many third-party integrations. You'll be able to see all about those, as well as our basic just security data streets. But you've also got blog posts, webinars, and videos out there on a regular thing. If you're following any of our social media, please do comment, like, and tweet or retweet. But if you have any questions about what we've discussed today, now is your chance to let us know. The chat is open, or you should be able to unmute yourselves if you want to talk to us as well. We'd be happy to take any questions. Your chance to grill our CTO if you want. Yet done a great job of explaining all this, so nobody has any questions for us, unfortunately. If data is immutable, can it ever be deleted? Francisco?
Pardon? So, can you repeat?
Yeah, something has come through the chat. If data is immutable, can it ever be deleted?
It may, if you configured the a period where that data is immutable. So as Mark showed, you can configure for how long the data cannot be changed, nor modified, nor deleted. You can make it forever, but you can set up a period. So after the period has expired, after the creation of the object, yeah, you can delete it. You can also configure the immutability as a changing period. So you can configure it to be extendable or reducible. So in that case, if you want to delete, you can go to the administration, reduce the period to a period that has already expired, and then you can delete it. But you can only do that if you're an administrator and if you have created the vault with that configuration.
Thank you. So we can change those vaults afterwards as well, can't we? So we could make it immutable, and then an administrator could come back in and change those settings as well.
Yes, but it depends how you configure it. So if you say extendable, what you cannot do is to reduce it. If it was configured as extendable, then you can only extend it. So if you are planning to change the period, you should configure it as extendable and reducible. But you can, if you configure it as a fixed period, then you cannot change the period.
Somebody just asked me in a private chat about tombstones. What's the advantage of the tombstones for extra auditing or tracking?
Well, tombstones are, yeah, as it said, it gives a proof that the object existed. So we leave that information, which is just metadata about the object, we leave it behind. It's it comes from our history, background history with banks and insurance companies, that they have internal policies where they really want to keep information about that, anything that passed by through the storage. It gives you that information, the proof that that object ever existed. But if you're, depending on the usage, if you're using a vault with as parking, as a temporary location, then I would say that it's not necessary. If you use it as an archive, as your deep archive, maybe it can be useful to have the tombstones.
Okay, great stuff. Well, there's no more questions by the looks of things. So I think we'll probably leave it there. Thank you, Richard. Yeah, I agree. Simon is a rascal to delete my media. We'll have a chat when he gets back off holiday next week. But thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Like I said, please, follow us: LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We're constantly posting blogs and videos, etc. And this video itself will be available via our website and YouTube shortly after as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Hope it's been useful. And thank you, Francisco, for a good chat.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Mark.